A lot of the action films I've been part of, I haven't been all that physical myself in them. You know, Jean Grey and Phoenix, like she just cerebral powers, you know, pointing a finger, things happen, people die, things explode, but I kind of, I mean, other than I die a few times in this, you know, but, you know, I sort of go unscathed in a lot of that, and there's not that much action involved in a lot of the things that I do.
Please welcome Famke Janssen! There you go. Here's a mic for you.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Good morning.
Well, thank you for coming out here. First time to Pittsburgh?
First time to Pittsburgh, and I actually was meant to film here a show called Hemlock Grove, because the novel was set here, and so we were going to film it here, and then last minute it fell through, and we ended up filming it in Toronto. It was 10 years ago. Otherwise, I would have been here for 3 years. But yeah, first time.
Well, welcome. So a couple questions for you. I'm sure they've got questions. First off, early in your career, you started out as a fashion model. How did you transition into acting?
Yeah, I was a model. I grew up in Amsterdam in Holland, and I was discovered on the street. And it wasn't something I ever thought of doing because Dutch people grow up with very realistic dreams. Like, you know, you're going to go to school and you're going to get a job. And it's not like Americans where it's like a godlike culture where you can dream big and be whatever you want to be. So when that offer came and I was studying something I really didn't feel like continuing, economics, I grabbed the chance, and that sort of, you know, through that, I traveled the world, and I came to America for the first time when I was 22. And then I sort of started thinking of an exit strategy of, I need to leave this business before it leaves me, because, you know, as a model, you have an expiration date on you. So then I decided to go back to school, went to Columbia University just to get some time away and have something to fall back onto. So I studied writing and literature there, and then started taking acting lessons outside of school, and then got my first audition, and the rest is history, I guess.
Did you get your first audition? Did you get the role from your first audition?
Probably not. But
just checking.
I don't remember my first audition. No, I didn't get my first audition. No. It's been a while, but no, rejection. Whew. I mean, yeah, you have to have thick skin, and I never developed it to be an actor. And I have two sisters, an older one and a younger one. And the older one, because I used to cry a lot when I was a kid, would be like, we need to thicken that skin and like get you, you know. So she tried. But she never succeeded. And so even though I got rejected a whole lot in the beginning of my career as an actor, I just kept going.
And you were a Bond girl in Goldeneye. How did you manage not to get typecast as like a femme fatale after that? Because that is pretty iconic to be a Bond girl.
Yeah, I know. And a Russian one on top of it. And with a name like Xenia Onatop. So yeah, how do you crawl out from underneath that one, you know? And especially because at that point, like I have such a my name is Famke Janssen, that's how you really pronounce it. And so I was tall, dark, you know, I had an exotic name, even though Holland is the least exotic country on the planet. And, you know, and then I come out in a Bond movie as this Russian. So I think everybody was just like, I don't know what to do with this other than, you know, maybe put her in that kind of thing. And I fought really hard against type to try to build a career as, you know, with more character parts. Mm-hmm. So I opted for smaller parts, working with great directors and going a different, you know, I think there's that poem, The Road Less Traveled, and I sort of feel like that's me. I constantly, if there's a freeway going this way, I take the little side roads to get to where I want to go, and that's what I did.
So this question's for me. I absolutely loved you in Nip Tuck as Ava Moore. I mean, was that role, has anybody seen her as Ava Moore, the life coach in Nip Tuck? just perfect gaslighting person. So was that role as much fun to do as it was for us to watch? Because that was a riot.
Yeah, that was a riot. And also because television works so differently from film when you sign, and I hadn't done really any television much. So when Ryan Murphy, they contacted me and wanted to pitch this idea to me. And so I watched their first season. I thought, oh, wow, that's really interesting and great. But you'd never know what you sign up for because they just, you don't have all the scripts. They just have maybe a script that's ready, and the rest are sort of a pitch of this could be going here, but it also could just detour and go like a whole different direction. So that always seemed a bit daunting to me, and still does when you do a series versus a film script that's completely written. You know your character arc, you know what you're playing. But it ended up being such a great experience because Ryan kept writing for me as we were filming, and they were still developing the character and the storyline. He'd be like, "Oh, I didn't know you were such a great crier." I'm like, yeah, ask my sister. And then, he kept going like in different, different areas with the story. And so it was really a very collaborative, beautiful effort and experience.
Because like a character like that can kind of get lost in the shuffle, but it really like skyrocketed and stole a lot of the thunder of the show. I mean, were you surprised by just that character arc? It just kept going?
It kept going, and to my surprise, many times where he would just take me aside and go, I have a great idea. And I'm like, oh, no. What's coming now? But yeah, he's very talented.
What's he like to work with as a director?
Amazing. I mean, the thing about Ryan is that he just does it all. He writes the script, he directs, he's very involved in the costumes and in the production design. Every part of it, a true auteur. And so working with him, just observing him and watching and collaborating with him was really just one of the highlights of my career.
And do you prefer movies to television, the way they're put together? What seems to suit you better?
They both have their advantages. Like I said, I like, maybe because I'm a Scorpio, I like to be a bit in control. And so I like the idea of like, I know the script, I know what I'm signing up for, I know what my character arc is, and, I have an idea of my journey versus going into a series where, you have to kind of relinquish that control and just go, I don't know. I think this is what I'm playing, but all of a sudden now I'm not, apparently. So, but you get a much longer period of time to develop a character, and that has its own advantages, obviously.
So we'll move on to X-Men real quick, and then we'll get to some questions. How demanding was it? It's a lot more physical than a lot of the stuff you've done. How demanding was that working in that series? Physically demanding. Physically demanding.
It's interesting because a lot of the action films I've been part of, I haven't been all that physical myself in them. Jean Grey, and Phoenix, like she just cerebral powers, pointing a finger, things happen, people die, things explode. But I kind of, other than I die a few times in this, but, I sort of go unscathed in a lot of that. And there's not that much action involved in a lot of the things that I do. But I generally keep in really good shape myself. So I could do anything they ask me to do, but usually I'm disappointed because, other people get to do all the fun action-y stuff.
We're going to get to questions in just a bit. If you have a question, just raise your hand. Kyle will come over and get your question. And before we get to that, I'd like to know if there are any projects you're currently working on that you can talk about.
Yeah, well, I have a few that just came out this year. Locked In is on Netflix right now. And Knights of the Zodiac is on Netflix right now. That came out. Hey, thank you. And then You Run is a show for Sky TV that hasn't come out in America just yet, but it will. And then I always forget what I've been working on, but yeah. So, and then now I'm in the middle of negotiations on something that I can't talk about just yet. So, yeah.
That sounds like a nice full plate for 2024. All right, let's get to some questions, and let's have at it.
Thank you. Hello, welcome to Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
is Patrick Stewart as charming as Jean-Luc Picard is, or they totally different personalities?
Well, I mean, Patrick is obviously an incredible actor and very charming in real life, but each one of the characters he plays have bits of him and other parts that are not. But he's been a joy to work with, both on Star Trek The Next Generation that I did with him and the X-Men series. So I'm super blessed.
And I'm actually going to work this side of the room, so Kyle, you can get over here. So I'll get questions over here. Kyle will get questions over there.
Okay. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
So something very interesting you said earlier was about the road less taken, which I 100% agree, because I consider myself nonconformist, and I very much so identify with that.
Right.
I'm someone who does not like to be told what to do, things like that. But my question is, okay, it's kind of a long one, but in The Last Stand, there's this really nice scene with Jean and Logan where she kind of snaps out of it, and it's like this back and forth. It's very tense, very involved. And she kind of goes to this mode switch and goes, I don't want to fix it, and throws him against the wall after begging him to kill her. I really loved that. I was very involved with that moment, and I was curious, what's your favorite moment acting in those films?
Well, that probably is good that you're bringing it up, and thank you so much, because when we were in pre-production for that film, I sat down with the writers and I said, rather than, which originally was written, we had Jean Grey and then we had Phoenix, but we didn't see her teetering between the two. And in that particular scene, I said, I would like to play Jean Grey with Phoenix coming out in bursts that are uncontrollable, so that we can see in almost sort of a schizophrenic kind of way of these two characters that are within her. And so we collaborated on that, and so that scene I'm very proud of, because that's exactly how we ended up, how they ended up writing it for me, with me saying, like, okay, on this line I want to be Phoenix, on this line I want to be Jean Grey. And that's how that came about. So it was hard to film, I'm not going to lie to you. Played a lot of, very soppy, sentimental songs to stay in like a state of despair. And then just came to set whenever they were ready. And, these scenes tend to, even though it's a couple of minutes on screen, but sometimes they can take an entire day to film. So it was mentally draining, but it was all worth it. I'm very proud of that scene, and I think it was effective in the end with what we tried to achieve. So thank you.
And we're going to go to this side of the room over here, this one. Yes, we're going to get a couple questions down here.
Oh. Hi, I'm just wondering if you would ever be open to doing a cameo in the Marvel X-Men crossover, since that's becoming a really big thing in the upcoming years.
Do you have an offer for me? No, I'm kidding. No, of course. I mean, I'm open to anything. It's been such an interesting journey, my career, because I've, accepted things that maybe in the beginning I didn't think I would accept. And I now just base it on, in that time in my life, what do I need? Do I want to work with a great director? Do I want to work with a certain actor? Do I, is this a role that I can really explore? Or, do I really want to go to South Africa to film? Or, there are all different reasons why I accept certain projects. So if that comes at the right time and it's the right moment in my life, then yes, for sure.
Thank you. And we have another question on this side.
Hello, it's great to see you on the top of the stage here in Pittsburgh. My question is about Eddie Murphy. My favorite Eddie Murphy movie is I Spy. How was it working with Gary Cole, Owen Wilson, and Eddie Murphy? Amazing. I mean, what a cast. Yeah, we had a really good time. It was dampened by the fact that 9/11 happened during production, so that made it very complicated. But I'll never forget that Eddie was like, we were filming outside in Budapest, and he came over to me and he goes, and I was dancing because anyone who knows me, I like to dance a lot, so I always dance somewhere. And he just came over to me and he goes like, you're like a 12-year-old girl.
And he really nailed it on the head. So I always think back of that fondly. But he's iconic, but great. And so is Owen, obviously, all of them. Yeah.
All right, one more question here.
Yes, when you were talking about the modeling, is it hard to model?
You know, modeling it's interesting because it's, for me in my life, it came and it fell into my lap. And then I was busier than I've probably ever been in my life because I was, luckily in high demand and ended up working a lot, which enabled me to get out of the environment that I was raised in and actually make money of my own and create a life for myself that I otherwise never ever would have been able to because I didn't come from money or anything like that. But the job itself is, it never fulfilled me mentally, but it did allow me to travel all over the world. And like I said, it just opened so many other things for me. So it is, I can be nothing but grateful for the opportunities that I have gotten as a result.
And we'll head over to the other side of the room for a few questions. If anybody has a question on this side, come over here and line up.
All right. First of all, it's so wonderful to have you here with us.
Thank you.
I just want to say before I get to my two-part question, I have been a huge fan of a lot of the movies that you were in: Deep Rising, the X-Men movies, Monuments Avenue, and GoldenEye, and Taken.
Oh, wow. I like that you mentioned Monument Ave in there, too. Thank you.
No problem. So my two-part question for you is, what were some of your biggest influences when going into acting? And out of all the films that you worked on, or the ones I mentioned, which ones do you consider your personal favorites and why?
Ooh, so many good questions. Well, because I grew up in the Netherlands, I was exposed to only certain types of American movies, and they usually were the more big budget kind of films because the rest didn't make it across. And then once I came to the States and once I went to Columbia University to study, I ended up taking a film class there that really changed everything for me. This professor was Annette Insdorf, and she's so knowledgeable about film. And the film class was really just, from the beginning of film through now. And so I learned a tremendous amount about films I'd never been exposed to before. And that created a whole new love for film and acting and all of that. So all of that just influenced and changed my life. And then in terms of the roles, like in the movies, Monument Ave was a beautiful experience because we bonded a lot. We were filming in Boston and we had a really great cast and director, sadly passed away. It was a character I had to do a Boston accent, and I had never done that before, and I was cast very last minute because I replaced someone on the film, and so I literally slept with like ear pods in my head just to, with dialect, people speaking in the dialect just to make sure I got it right. And so that, but then all the X-Men movies, because they were filmed over years and years, and, we bonded all together over that. It's not only that we were on set for 5 months, but then we would travel for a month to go and promote them. And so it just is a lot of time spent, obviously, with a group of people. And so GoldenEye, very defining moment in my career, and, filming in London, one of my favorite cities in the world, and, and all the opportunities that came from it. So every single one has a special place in my heart. And, but I really think that sometimes people undervalue that the importance of, as an actor, to understand film, to teach, to learn about it, to really study it. I find that a lot of young actors don't look at films, older films, classic films, in the way that maybe they could or should, because it's defined generations of actors and filmmakers, and there's a lot to learn from watching them. So thank you for your question. It's a really good question.
You're welcome. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Hi, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of yours. I've been following your career since I was a little kid.
Thank you.
My absolute favorite role with you is Deep Rising, and I know that we had just talked about fans for a role. There were a lot of stunts and also an amazing cast. I was wondering, what was some of the physical demands for the film, and what was it like working with the late Treat Williams and some of the rest of the amazing cast that became huge stars after that film?
Yeah, that was an incredible experience. We filmed it in Vancouver, and the late Treat Williams, very missed, and such an amazing actor. He did a movie, I think in the 70s, called Prince of the City, which if none of you have seen it, go and watch this movie. It's a powerhouse performance. But yeah, physically very demanding also because Vancouver is a bit cold and wet on a good day, but then they doused us with rain and wind machines. And so I ended up losing my voice completely during filming because we had to scream over the wind machines and the rain machines, and but the cast was amazing. We used to get together in hotel rooms and just some of the actors ended up playing guitar and things, and we'd just sit around and sing songs, and they would play guitar, and so I have really fond memories of that experience.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
Hey, you mentioned music a couple different times, both to help with roles or come back from roles, and also being from the Netherlands that has a really interesting progressive music scene, and it's quite a few good bands. I was interested to know, maybe a couple from your Spotify playlist, or maybe some interesting bands that you have listened to, or something that you like to use for role preparation or relaxation or anything along those lines.
Yeah, they're all different things. I don't use Spotify or any of those. I have a Sonos at home, and I use a French radio station called FIP, and it's FIP, and it is the most eclectic radio station I've ever listened to, and so I have it on all the time. And through that, I learn about so many different kinds. It's like French hip hop or classical or rock, but just very unusual. Sometimes, covers of songs done in Japanese, it's just, I discover new things through there all the time. And I find that if I left to my own devices, I'll dance to Michael Jackson or something because, it's great music and fun, but I need to be exposed to different music all the time. And also because I use it, I definitely use it for roles. I use it, and then there's I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the solfeggio frequencies, but they apparently, if you listen to these frequencies, they help you with certain states in your being. So I use those too. So music in general, because it is they're all different frequencies that affect us. I use them all in my life. Yeah. Thanks.
So actually, I have a question for you.
Yes.
We all know things can go wrong on set.
No.
No. All your sets are perfect. I'm very happy. Or you might have someone on the cast who's a bit of a trickster. Have there been scenes that have been difficult to get through because of either things going wrong or someone being a little bit unserious? And how did you power through that?
Well, we've all experienced laughing fits on, when you have to just try to stay serious, but somehow you get the giggles or whatever. So that certainly helps. But I think my best example of, things not going exactly as planned was when I directed a movie called Bringing Up Bobby. I wrote, directed, and produced it. And I cast Mila Jovovich and Bill Pullman in the leads for it. And on that movie, I learned firsthand that everything can apparently go wrong, and that the only option you have is to find solutions and not get stuck over, the things that you've lost or the opportunities that you were hoping for, and just go with the flow. There were many times where, for an example, I wanted to have an old train caboose that was there's a movie called Harold and Maude, and I love that movie so much. And Maude in the movie lives in, and it's set in the 70s. So she lives in an old train caboose, and I wanted to have one for the movie. And so I looked all over Oklahoma where we were filming, to see if I could find it, and I couldn't find anything until finally the train museum said, you can use ours because it looked really old. It was really old. And we'll put it at the end of the train station because it had to look like it was in the middle of nowhere. And so I went to the scout location, looked at it, and was like, amazing. And then on the morning of that we got there, they thought they did me a favor by mowing all the grass and the weeds and like everything around it, which all of a sudden exposed the freeway and everything I didn't want to see, and didn't make it look like it was rural in the middle of nowhere. It just made it look like, So we just hadn't, we're like, all right, what do? We just put things in front of the camera to make it look like it's wild. And that was just one of many things that went wrong on that film. It's a good experience and I think a good lesson for life, Nothing ever goes the way you think it's going to go. And all you can do is just roll with the punches.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So a bit about that film. Where can people see that?
Very good question. I have no idea. I haven't looked it up to see where it is. It was at some point. Probably if you go, there's Bringing Up Bobby, and it's Mila Jovovich and Bill Pullman. So I know there is another movie by the same title. That's a Christian religious movie. That's not the one that I made, but. So it is probably viewed maybe on Amazon Prime, or I don't know.
Actually, it is on Tubi and Peacock.
There you go.
This gentleman over here.
What year?
I knew that.
What year did you do this? That film?
I want to say 10, 15 years ago or something like that. Time is just, I have no idea. A while ago.
Do you currently still write and want to get to another film?
I write. I've written over the years many scripts that are sitting somewhere on my computer. And one was an animated film that I really was hoping to get off the ground called Anchor, about a baby rhino. Oh. But, maybe one day something will happen again like that.
So as far as when you did your film, was there any director that you really found was an influence that you had worked with before? Said, I really like the way this director works. I really like the way he treats his actors. I really think this director gets the most out of a scene. Was there one particular director you remember taking some influence from when you were directing?
No, I think that the interesting thing is all the men and women directors, female directors and male directors I've worked with over the years, they've all had moments, and I think that's what the best part about being an actor is. It's almost like you're in film school on every set, because you can observe directors' work, you can observe how the DP, how they light, how the costume designer works, production designer, like you can really learn a lot. And that's what I did over all those years, just observing and watching. And then took from each director sometimes maybe like, oh, I think that's an interesting thing, that I not so much. And then I would just, So some of them influenced me, and others I would be like, I would never do that.
All right. Any more questions? Okay. What, you have another one over there or no? Okay.
Actually, I was wondering, in your directing, do you work with editors a lot to make sure that, because the editing can make or break a film, so do you usually sit down with them?
I had, first of all, a DP who I worked very closely with. Both my DP and my editor were Dutch, like I am, because I got a little bit of money from the Netherlands, and that meant that I had to have both of them, be from the Netherlands, and that my editing would take place in Amsterdam. So I did that, and so the DP and I gave him a ton of work to look at and go, like, from Harold and Maude, watch this scene, and from, One Flew Over the Cuckoo, whatever. I'm just like naming any, just Bonnie and Clyde, watch this thing, and this is for the light, I want that. And so that's what I did with him. And then in the editing room, I went to Amsterdam and I sat in the editing room with him every day. And then he came to New York and we did the final edit there. And then the rest of post-production was in New York. But yeah, those are very close collaborations, and very important ones, because editing, you can change an entire movie around in an editing room.
Absolutely.
So, we have one final question over here, but I have a question. Where did you see Harold and Maude? Was it available in Amsterdam? Because that is like 72, Bud Cort, Ruth Gordon. That's kind of an underground cult film.
Not until I came to the United States and I started, being introduced to older classic movies did I discover that film. And Hal Ashby, the director, has become one of my famous directors of all time. most of my one of my favorite directors of all time. That I watch his movies, consistently, because I think he's such an enigma.
One final question here.
So they redid the X-Men, and obviously a Jean Grey happened with Sophie Turner, and then they're probably doing it again. Do you feel ownership over the character being the first one, and have you seen the second interpretation and thought like, oh, that was interesting, even if it was different, or were you more just, I kind of skipped that?
No, I mean, Jean Grey exists in the comic books, and she is up for any interpretation of how you want to play her. And I saw her a certain way, and other actors will see her a different way. And so I think I have no ownership over her whatsoever. I mean, I'm just grateful I got to inhabit, her for a limited, or it was actually a fairly long period of time over the span of 5 films, if you include the Wolverine and Days of Future Past. So yeah, it's just been an incredible journey, and but I would love to see what someone else does with her in the future.
Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, everyone,
Famke Janssen. Famke Janssen. Headed back to your table to sign, am I right?
Yes, I'm going back to my table.
Please go back and give it up. There you go. That's more like it. That's more like it.
Thank you so much.